Awesome. Well, thanks for having me.
Sure.
I appreciate the opportunity to carry a message. For me, what I've experienced and what I've learned as far as that message is concerned is it just comes down to hope, followed by some examples of like faith without works is dead and hope without action is dead in the same way. So what I'm going to try to do tonight is, as was read in the preamble, in a general way, share what I used to be like, what happened, what I'm like now, and try and do that from my own point of view, using my own language, and sort of give an idea of how I came to trust and rely on something greater than me to save me from being such a whatever, insert expletive here. And my hope in that message, of hope, is that someone listening will think, maybe I've got this alcoholism thing, and maybe these steps will work for me too. I think I'll give it a try. So with that out of the way, I'm going to get myself out of the way, if you'll humor me, with just a quick little prayer, and then we'll wind me up and set me loose and see what happens. So here we go. God, help Reed say what needs to be heard by everyone, including himself. Get me out of the way. All right, cool. So now if my story sucks, it's God's fault. And we can all blame God instead of me. So my name's Reed. I'm an alcoholic. Hey. Tuesday, I will turn 35, God willing. And Wednesday, I will celebrate my 13th soberversary, God willing. I'm going to kind of Tarantino jump around, I guess. And we'll just start with the last bottom that got me into recovery. My last episode, getting drunk and getting high, and how does the big book say it? High-powered sedatives or whatever the outside things, the way they term it, so that we can kind of term it and share that experience as well. So May 2nd, 2010, I turned 22 years old. And the night before, my ex-girlfriend, who I was living with, who was an ex when I moved in with her, so we were both really smart and making really sane, healthy decisions, said, "You're out of here tomorrow," right? And this isn't the first time in my life and in my career of drinking that someone said, "You're out of here tomorrow, leave, don't ever come back," right? So I dealt with that in the way that I knew how to deal with that, and that was get drunk, get high, and trip, and all that stuff that I do to stuff my feelings and manage my problems and whatever. Sun comes up. My best thinking is, all right, well, I have to get out of this apartment. I guess I'm going to take everything that I can fit in my car and shove it in my car, and I guess I'll be homeless in Asheville, my hometown, rather than Columbia, South Carolina, heading into the summer months, because here it's kind of hot and muggy, and it might be more comfortable up in Asheville. So I hop in the car. I'm driving up I-26, drunk, stoned, tripping on acid, and I think I can wave my finger at my gas gauge and fill my car up with gas. I don't have any money to put in my gas tank because I've spent all my money on the necessities of life, alcohol, other things. And I run out of gas on the side of 26 somewhere outside of Spartanburg, South Carolina. I'm an only child, surrounded by alcoholism in my family. My dad got sober a couple years before I did. He's number 4 of 5 boys, all of whom don't drink because they're in recovery or because they've seen what it does to us, with the exception of one who is an active alcoholic, and what that looks like for him is he rides his moped to his job tending bar. My mom's side of the family, her mom got sober in the rooms of AA. Her dad is a highly functioning alcoholic to this day. My mom has earned her seat in Al-Anon on all sides. Spouse, parents, child, God bless her. So that is just leading to I'm an only child and sort of family stuff. But as an only child, I know how to throw a tantrum. World-class tantrum. Like, should be on my resume. And so I run out of gas on the side of 26, and that's what I do. I throw a tantrum. And my best thinking is, or justification, or all the twists and turns of dishonest, self-seeking, fearful behavior, right, that was me before I found myself in rooms like this, was my car's too heavy because it's full of all this stuff, because that insert expletive here kicked me out of her apartment, and that's why my Jedi mind tricks on the gas tank aren't working, and right? And I find myself in Reed fashion, not the first time, but thank God the last time, drunk, stoned, tripping on acid, naked, covered in blood, side of 26. One of the charges I got that day was littering because I, like I said, took everything out of my car. State trooper shows up, hand on his pistol, other hand out, and he doesn't say, you know why I stopped you today, sir, or anything like that. That's your. It's just, what are you on? And for the first time in a long, long time, I was honest. And I said, I'm on this and that and the other, and you're going to find this in the glove box and this in the center console and this in a bag in the trunk, and here's a key to that bag. Thank God. Has anyone been arrested and been, relieved that they're being arrested? Me too. That's how I felt. I was like, oh, thank God you're here, because I can't do this anymore. And that's how I spent my 22nd birthday in solitary confinement in Spartanburg County, drunk, stoned, and tripping on acid. And I didn't know it at the time, but I took the first 3 steps in that little room. And if I want to, I don't want to, but if I want to or I feel like I need to, I can close my eyes and I can go there. And I can see those white center block walls, and I can see that concrete floor, and I can see that little square drain in the middle of that floor, and I can see that little square window and that metal door with the chicken wire through it. And more importantly than outwardly all of that, I can feel what I felt. That hopeless, helpless uncle, As I said before, my dad got sober a couple years before I did, and that's when he started working a program, and that is also when my mom stopped being at Al-Anon and started being in Al-Anon, which sucked for me, because I was on the receiving end of something called Detach with Love, which basically meant that mom and dad quit their cleanup Reed's mess brigade, job, and let me fall. But I can recall that phone call from jail, to my dad, and his voice on the other end of the phone. Reed, you have no idea how many sleepless nights your mother and I have spent wondering where you are, who you're with, what you're doing, if you're alive or dead, hoping for this call instead of the other one, or the knock on the door, Mr., we regret to inform you, we found your son, da-da-da-da-da, right? I know just where you're going. That's what he said. And 2 days later, I was at a residential treatment center called Pavillon. And I was over the moon to be there. But as elated as I was to be there, I was uninvolved and undrinking the Kool-Aid and wasn't doing the thing, but thanks for getting me out of where I was. I like to say I was voted least likely to succeed by everyone that was there receiving treatment alongside me, everyone that was there providing treatment to me at the time. But it was exactly what I needed. It was exactly where my higher power put me. And the biggest gift from that experience was I was provided with an aftercare plan that was bulletproof. where I would have to try really hard to screw it up. And I kind of tried to screw it up, you know, if it weren't for this family program thing that they had, that allowed my parents to say, yeah, you know, we put you in treatment, but, you know, you can accept the help, right? Or which bridge do you want us to drop you off under, kind of? Which baffled me, because I was like, well, I don't know what it costs to put me here, but you're going to throw that away? And they're like, yeah, because you know, wouldn't work if we did anything else. So the easier, softer way for me was, yeah, whatever you say. Halfway house, fine. Intensive outpatient program, fine. Individual therapy, fine. Monitoring, drug testing, reporting, fine. Whatever. Sign me up, you know. And that's what I did. You know, I went to this halfway house, and I was surrounded by a bunch of other young men who were just as crazy as I was, and who were just as scared of what people thought of them as I was, and who had the same unhealthy defense mechanisms as I had. And together, we sloppily walked our way through this recovery thing. And I went to 5 meetings a week, because if I didn't, I was out of the house. And then the question was, which bridge do you want us to drop you off under? And I got a sponsor, because if I didn't, I was kicked out of the house. And which bridge do you want us to drop you off under, right? And I worked the steps, and I got a home group, and I started doing service and making coffee and opening doors and greeting people and chairing meetings and all that stuff. And what happened was I found purpose. And I found, like, serenity, but I didn't know it yet, you know? I remember sitting outside drinking coffee with a sponsor, and I was kind of like, you know, everything's fine. It's kind of, you know, boring. And he was like, "That you're not bored. You're serene. These are the promises coming true, you know?" And then on the very back end of that, he was like, "And this too shall pass." And I was like, "Fuck you, buddy," you know? Because I thought this too shall pass was only for bad things. But apparently it's everything, because change is constant, I guess. I don't know. So I worked through these steps with the guidance of many sponsors and many people in this fellowship that kept, you know, said keep coming back instead of don't ever come back. And if you come back here, we're calling the cops, you know. They said keep coming back, so I did, because it felt good. And the first step for me, like I said, I took those first 3 steps in solitary confinement. You know, I can't. My life is a mess. Something's got to be able to help me. I think I'll ask for help. And I said that, you know, powerful prayer. God, please help. That 3-word, help me, please. In that moment. And I didn't know that those were the first 3 steps. But I kind of learned that retrospectively after taking the first 3 steps with a sponsor. And step 1 was, for me, was largely my sponsor walking me through how to identify the alcoholic in me and how it shows up. And I learned that I have this mental obsession and this physical allergy and this spiritual malady that make up my disease. And that mental obsession is when I'm not drunk or when I am drunk, I'm thinking about getting drunk, or I'm thinking about how good it is to get more drunk. That's my obsession. And my physical allergy is once I start drinking, there's no telling what's going to happen. I'm going to drink until there's nothing left to drink, or until something stops me from drinking it. Right? And that spiritual malady for me is just selfishness. Dishonest, selfish, baby, only child tantrum mentality. That's my spiritual malady. There's one little anecdote. As I said, I kind of bounce around, like we're going to jump back and be crazy read here for a second, that sort of exemplifies like how the disease would manifest, that mental obsession, physical allergy, and spiritual malady. This is the night before the first day of the second semester at this tech school in Jamestown, North Carolina. I'll say that again. The night before the first day of the second semester at this tech school. And it's one of the schools that I've found myself in after ping-ponging, bouncing down the school dropout or whatever course, each less prestigious than the first that I just dropped out of. And I have every intention of doing the school thing, like being a successful student and like being an adult. And I'm like, I'm going to get up on time. I'm going to go to class. I'm going to take notes. I'm going to like do this thing. I can do this. And then my alcoholic starts going on one side of my head. And it's like, you know what? If there's any day to skip, it's the first day. Because all they do is take attendance and go over the syllabus. I'm like, you know, there's always tomorrow, little Annie Oakley kind of bullshit going through my head. And the other half of my head's like, yeah, that's great. That's good. So what should we do if we're not going to go to class tomorrow? And I'm like, you know what you should do? You should get locked up, you know? And that's that mental obsession. That's that insane idea that the first drink isn't the one that gets me drunk. Where despite my best intentions and goals for myself, I just can't not. And so I do. And that sparks this physical allergy. And when I was in early recovery, I was like, you know what? If I was allergic to alcohol, I'd be dead. You know? No one intakes the amount of a substance they're allergic to that I intook of alcohol and lives to tell the tale. Because I thought like an allergy was like you eat strawberries or peanuts and you can't breathe. What I learned was that the type of alcoholic allergy that I have is just an abnormal reaction to alcohol. I react differently, abnormally than most people, normal people, whatever we want to call them, earthlings, I don't care. I react differently. When a normal person drinks alcohol, they get this warm, slightly out of control feeling, and they don't want to drink anymore. When I drink alcohol, I get this warm, in control feeling. And all I want to do is drink more. And that's my physical allergy that leads into this phenomenon of craving where I can't stop drinking once it starts. So I'm drinking and doing the other stuff that we do. And then the spiritual malady starts coming in. And I'm feeling lonely and selfish and all this stuff. And I have the bright idea, I'm going to hop in my car, I'm going to drive to App State to see my girlfriend. I don't know why she was still dating me. So I do that, you know, and I show up and I knock on her door and I start feeding her all the BS that I was feeding myself. But she doesn't buy it because she's normal and sane. And she's like, you can do whatever you want, man. Like, hang out in the apartment, but I'm going to my first day of classes. And so what do? Only child tantrum time, right? And I throw a tantrum, and I take off my watch, and I smash it in her sink. I'm like, I'm going to make the time stop, and we'll be together. Da, da, da. Like, just fucking selfish, self-centered, dishonest, fearful insanity. Scare the living daylights out of her. She calls mom and dad. I find myself in the psych ward. You know, has anyone else been to a psych ward? It's just me. So the type of psych ward that I went to, like, they take away your shoelaces, and they lock your bathroom door. And I learned at Pavillon Treatment, my counselor called me into his office and he was like, you won't believe what we got in your medical records today. If you're a medical professional, you know you shouldn't do this, but I'm so glad that he did. He turned his computer screen to me and he's like, read this incident report from that time one of the times that you were in the psych ward. And the incident report read, you know, Reed told nurse so-and-so that he had to go number 2, but it was much more foul language than that. And nurse so-and-so told Reed to hold it. And Reed dropped his scrubs in the middle of the hallway and defecated in his hand and threw it at the nurse and said, you hold it. And so my reaction to reading that incident report was not what I think my counselor was going for. I think he was going for, oh my God, shame. Like, that was me. Holy shit. I'm a registered, documented shit flinger, right? But instead, the reaction that I gave was like, yeah, that's right. I'm crazy. Come at me. I'll throw shit at you for real, you know? But that was the best I could do in that moment. Like, that was just how the walls that kept me safe up until that moment. And in recovery and in the rooms, I've learned and was walked through how to let those walls down. That's where the rest of the steps came in. Like, after I identified that mental obsession, physical allergy, spiritual malady, insane whatever, I could do something about it. And that was just take the rest of the steps. And I came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. And my sponsor pointed out that I don't have to believe in a power greater than me at step 2. I just have to believe that if there is one, it could restore me to sanity. And I was like, okay, cool. Here we come, handling situations intuitively, which used to baffle me, and yada yada. And he's like, no, buddy. That's halfway through step 9. The sanity we're talking about here at step 2, Reed, is the removal of that insane idea that you are or could be like normal people when it comes to alcohol. That's the sanity you get here. Let's keep moving, right? Momentum. That was key for me in going through these steps. And we took step 3. Anyone know the third step prayer? God, I offer myself to thee, build with me. And there's a whole bunch of thous and wilts and won'ts and bondage. I'm like, whoa, like I didn't know that. I knew we meet in church basements, but come on. And so my sponsor was like, look, like what it says is figure out what this prayer means and make it your own. So it's not just words, like it means something to you. But first we had to do like the weird, I don't know if anyone else does this or if it's just in my sponsorship family, but it felt really weird. Like we got on our knees and held hands and like read that will thou, relieve me of bondage, offer myself to thee, do with me and build with me as thou wilt kind of thing out of the big book. And I was like, this is getting, I don't know about this AA thing. And then he was like, now reword it and come back to me with your third step prayer. And I did that. And then he gave me some instructions on how to take this fearling and searchous, whatever, moral inventory, right? And so I was like, all right, I can do that, I'm resentful at Susie because she whatever, and it affected my pocketbook and my relationships and my self-esteem and whatever, right? And I did that 3-column grudge list, like way, way back as far as I could think to go back. Anything that I was mad about or didn't go my way, like I wrote about it. What I resented, why, and what it affected in me. My insecurities. And I took that to my sponsor and I was like, all right, here's my 4th step. Let's do step 5. And he was like, no, buddy. Hold your horses there, little buckaroo, We're going to do this thing called turnarounds. And we're going to do this thing called a sex inventory. And we're going to do this thing called a fear list. And you're going to write where you were dishonest in each of these things on your grudge list. Where did you judge, lie, manipulate, steal in order to selfish self-seeking, try and arrange the world to suit your little selfish designs. And we're going to really look at how messed up you are and from this grudge list and figure out how to fix you, because that's what you can control, right? In that serenity prayer, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the wisdom to change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. The difference is me. That's the thing that I can change. Me. That's it. And I can't do it by myself. That's why I come to AA, and that's why I pray and meditate and work these steps. Getting ahead of myself. So I do this fearless and searching moral inventory, and I do these turnarounds, and I read this to my sponsor, and I spent a long time and put a lot of effort into this inventory, and he's interrupting me halfway through all of my monologues of like, all right, yeah, you were selfish and you thought you deserved this, and next, move on, tell me the next pity party story out of your inventory. And I'd be like, well, this happened and that. And he's like, okay, yeah, you were afraid of being abandoned, or you were afraid of what they thought of you, or you were afraid of not getting what you wanted, or losing something you had, and next, move on, next, move on, next, move on. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm seeing a pattern now, right? I'm seeing how, really identifying the hole that I've been trying to scramble and fill. And then I got ready, and I got still, and I got quiet, and I asked my higher power to remove my shortcomings, character defects, whatever. And what I learned was I'm at step 7, I'm letting go of the things that I don't like about myself. But anyone know the 7th step prayer? There's this weird little thing in there where it's remove from me all the things that I don't like about me that stand in the way of my usefulness to you, my higher power, and my fellows. And I wanted to ignore that second part, that stand in the way of my usefulness part. Because some of these key defects of character or things I've identified about myself that I hate, loathe, are still useful in my higher power's vision for me. So all I can do is open my hands and let my higher power take them away. If I try and throw them, they're just going to turn like a boomerang, right? Just like alcohol turned like a boomerang, came back and all but cut me to ribbons. We've read that, maybe. That's what my character defects will do if I try and throw them away instead of let them go. One example of that I'll share, I'm in an AA meeting, and I'm trying really hard, to control my language. I've got a terrible mouth, trying to be better, trying to grow. But the guy sitting beside me, he starts talking, and he would win the sailor cuss-off competition, right? And it's F this and F that, cuss words I had never heard before, and I kind of wanted to go learn about afterwards. But I'm looking at my other friends in the meeting, we're rolling eyes, and this guy's got no message. Listen to how sick he is. No, in our heads. And afterwards, in a parking lot meeting, after the meeting outside, we're all standing around and sort of gossiping about that. And I see this Skeletor dude, the sick and suffering guy that's you might have seen him sitting in the back of the room with his hood up, trying not to be seen, right? Beelines it through me and all of my cool friends who are just so sober and awesome, and everyone wants what we have, just straight through us, we don't exist, to that guy. And he's thank you so much for saying it like it is. No one gets it. You get it. Will you be my sponsor? And at that point, I'm all right, I don't know, whatever. Take it, don't take it. Take it from, sailor mouth, or don't take, whatever, dude. Just, I'm going to do what you put in front of me the best I can. So then I made a list of all the people, places, things, institutions, whatever, that I had harmed, and got ready to make amends. And then I went out and I made amends. Direct when possible, except when to injure, do so would injure them or others. For a long time, I felt it was except when to do so would injure me or others, but it's not. And I was damn it. And I learned that there are 3 types of amends, There are the amends that I go out and make right away. Direct amends, I can do them right away. There are the amends that I make in kind, where in order to make that amends, I would need to insert myself in someone's life that doesn't want me inserting myself in their life to clear my conscience, right? And then there's the type of amends that I never get to make. And man, was I wrong about all of that, because when I thought I was going to make amends, I thought I was going to go say I'm sorry to all my ex-girlfriends, and show them how great I am, and maybe one more time or something like that. And I didn't get to do that. And I thought I was, it was the opposite of what I wanted to do, right? But I followed the instructions and the guidance of my sponsor when I made that plan and went out and made those amends. And I went to employers. I used to work in food service, and be look, I ate a lot of food off the line, and I was only supposed to have one meal per shift, and this is what I think I owe you, and I'd like to pay you this much a month until it's paid off. And that's like a direct financial amends. And then like an amends in kind was like the shit flinger kind of thing. So like nurse so-and-so doesn't want me showing up, right? Like that's going to cause more harm than good maybe. So I make an amends in kind, and I go to a psych ward and I say, hey, you know, I'm in recovery. This is kind of my mission. I'm trying to mend the damage, right? And making an amends is mending the damage caused, not saying I'm sorry or why I did what I did, just mending the damage. And can I bring a 12-step meeting into your psych ward for 6 months, once a week? Is that something I can do? Absolutely. Come on, bring it in. And then there's some that I can't make because can't make them and can't talk about them either. So yeah, made amends, and I cleaned up my side of the street without leaf blowing my leaves across the street into my neighbor's yard. And I found myself on solid ground with my higher power, like this newfound relationship that I had built with this thing that was like a little Jiminy Cricket, but way cooler and way more strong. And I found myself like feeling okay and able to look the world in the eye again, and able to, because things from my past weren't popping into my present and ruining my thinking process and detracting me from being able to be of maximum service in this moment in front of me. And then, you know, from then on, I was just continuing to take personal inventory. When I'm wrong, I admit it, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, usually slowly. Half measures, I don't know, but maybe I'm different, but half measures availed me a shit ton. I don't know, like half measure seems like all I got, but and I think I'm doing pretty good, but. So anyways, do this inventory thing. I get still and quiet, and I pray and meditate, and I listen for my higher power. And that's easy. The hard part is when I get still and quiet and listen for my higher power and I hear a message, accepting that message as if it is from my higher power and acting on it. When I do that, I feel fine and I don't regret it. And when I get a message and I'm like, oh, maybe that's my ego trying to get what it wants, or maybe it's a coincidence, and I don't act on it, I regret it every time. So today, like with step 11, I just cast a wide spiritual net, and whatever it catches, I make use of, and whatever goes through the net, I don't worry about. And maybe I'll catch it on the next pass, and maybe I won't. But when I do catch it, it's the right tool for the time. So when people, you know, ask me about spirituality, I just, yes and is my spirituality, you know. Jesus, Buddha, dragons, fairies, Allah, like whatever, dude. Yes and. You know, I try and build a relationship with that power greater than myself on a daily, minutely basis and engage in that relationship on a daily, minutely basis. And try not to define what it is. You know, one of my sponsors told me this cool little saying, and it's like, you know, a God defined is a God confined. And he told that to me because I was trying to figure out what my higher power was. He's like, Reed, a God defined is a God confined. And if you're confining your God, you're controlling it. And if you're controlling it, how the hell is it going to save you from alcohol? How's it going to, you know? That's just another one of those things you're trying to manipulate to get what you want, keep what you have. That's not your game anymore. Your game is another thing that I've heard. It's like, do the next right thing. In early recovery, that was easy for me because the next right thing was the opposite of whatever I wanted to do. That was simple. Like, read whatever you want. The opposite of that is the next right thing. But what happened is I started working these steps and practicing these principles and getting better and growing along spiritual lines, and my will and my higher power's will got a little bit more aligned, and it was harder to tell what the next right thing was. So then I just flipped it on its head, and instead of doing the next right thing, I just do the next thing right. And whatever that is, I bring all of what I can to it. And sometimes I'm compassionate and tolerant and loving, and sometimes I'm an asshole. But at least today I'm awake enough to like recognize the difference between those things. So what it was like, doors were closing. I was unable, period. I was unteachable. I was unemployable, undateable, unfriendable, just unable to do life. What happened? I cried uncle, came in here, choked on my pride until someone in AA gave me the Heimlich maneuver and walked me through the steps. That's what happened. And what I'm like now is I'm able, I'm spouseable, married. I'm parentable. I'm a son to my parents. I am a parent to my child. I am employed. I am a friend, and I have friends, and like real friends. Not the type of friends that I had when I was getting drunk and getting high. Like, how can I manipulate you to get what I want from you, whether it's your drugs or your money or your attention? The type of friends that hurt my feelings on a regular basis. Not because they're trying to shove me down to lift themselves up, but because they love me. And they're holding up a mirror and saying, Reed, look, being that asshole again. Excuse me. You're being that guy again. In early recovery, we would be like, oh, yeah, take my inventory. I'll take your inventory. No. Here's what's going on with you. And like later in recovery, Reed just says, thank you. Yeah, that I was doing that. I was thinking that. I was feeling that. Thanks for pointing that out. I'm going to work on that. If you see it pop up in the future, please tell me again. So yeah, that's what it's like today. I show up. I'm happy I get to. There's more to say. I'm not going to say it. Done. Thanks for listening. Yeah.